What is up, and welcome to No Agenda, where I have my internet friends come teach me stuff. Today I'm sitting down with the one and only OG corporate comedy influencer, CorporateBro, who will actually be teaching us how to write a TV pilot. So I'm super excited for today. Corp, thanks for being here. Corp or Ross, what should we call you today?
Corp works.
Okay.
Corp works. More people call me Corp, and I think in this context, Corp is probably better.
Corp is good. Yeah.
Unless you're reprimanding me, because you can call me Ross. Then you can call me Ross.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, we'll get into all that. I want to hear about your switch from pseudonymous, can never say that word, to becoming Ross at some point. But let me do a quick bio for people that maybe don't know you. So CorporateBro is a comedian, salesperson, investor, podcast host. Transitioned from doing sales at Oracle, now runs the CorporateBro socials and YouTube, as well as Corp Capital, which is a fund that allows salespeople to invest in the private markets. So, Ross, I probably missed some stuff.
No, that's it. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Avid golfer, physical specimen.
Right. Athlete.
Ex-elite athlete.
Yeah. There we go. We got a ton of stuff to get through today, so I'm just going to get right into it. I have to say also, on a personal note, because I'm an ex-salesperson, I feel like I have extra gratitude for the comedy you put out there. And I'm sure it resonates with like just corporate America in general, but like for salespeople in particular, it's amazing to see the portrayal. I especially like a recent series that you've been doing, the transcriptions.
Oh yeah.
Of like the cold calls.
The cold call reenactments. Yeah.
For people that haven't seen it, how did that come about and what is it?
Yeah. So I guess I've always been someone who's like, every post has to be like original and a new format. I don't want to copy formats and blah. And then it got to a point where I was like, no, I need to find a way to standardize some content, have something that like is repeatable and doesn't require as much unique original thought. So, I was watching Drunk History, and I think Drunk History is goddamn hilarious, and watching them kind of reenact these, the history as it's being told by this drunk person, and the lip syncing is perfect. And I was like, well, what's our version of Drunk History? And we have these cold calls, these ridiculous cold calls. We try to keep them short, anywhere like I would say under a minute and a half, so 90 seconds. And I basically play both sides of the phone call. I play the rep as well as the prospect. And usually these interactions are pretty rough. So the prospect is screaming or angry or something outrageous happens, and it kind of just cuts back and forth. So I'm basically lip syncing over these two characters on a ridiculous phone call.
And these are real transcriptions. So I remember when we were in sales, we had software that would record all of this. It would like make a little announcement that says like, your call is being recorded. And then the transcription would be available later for like enablement, for whatever, just like going through and not having to take notes.
Exactly.
So these are real transcriptions that you're using, right?
These are real transcriptions, and people are like, these are no way these are real. And then we have other people being like, man, the writing in this call was friggin' epic, dog. And I'm like, bro, you dumbass, I did not write. We say right when it starts, this is a real cold call from a real sales savage, and like, whatever.
Yeah, but you're so satire and sarcastic on your page.
True.
No one can believe anything that you say anymore.
That's true. That's a problem. That's a real problem. My mom never knows when I'm even being sarcastic or not. She just thinks I'm a huge asshole, which is true. But sometimes I'm even hearing a genuine compliment. She's like, what the fuck? Really?
It's the worst when you're around people that know you really well, and then you're around new people as well, and like you're doing a bit, and then you have to like,
oh yeah,
your friend has to explain to the person like, no, he's just doing a bit.
Exactly. I have people who are like, can you just like not do like what you normally do? Like give them a little time to warm up so they understand you, because they're just gonna think you're a huge douche. And I'm like, well, I'll try. And then people are like, what's wrong, man? There's something wrong with you today? And I'm like, no, you told me to not be a freak. So I'm trying to be so I just do nothing.
Right.
It's kind of freak or nothing with me.
That's so funny. The what's wrong, when you have a big personality and a lot of charisma, there's the dude, what's wrong? You seemed off tonight. Like you weren't really.
It's like, no, I'm fine. I was just trying to, give up some of the space, some of the airtime to other people, and not be that guy for once.
Amazing. All right. Well, let's, so the transcriptions are amazing. You've got a ton of amazing content out there as well. Just like different reenactments or character plays of sales managers, SDRs, shitting on marketing. It's all great. But I want to get into your background a little bit, go through kind of where you got to today, and then we'll do, hopefully spend some time talking about, I know you've had a little bit of experience writing pilots and doing more in the entertainment world.
Yep.
So let's go through all that. So I didn't actually realize this before your sales job, you were a minor league baseball pitcher?
Yeah, at the lowest level. So I played independent minor league ball in a league called the Pacific Association, which it was a brand new league that had just popped up, and I was actually working a real estate job, I was doing luxury apartment sales in Oakland, which is like a paradox in and of itself. I was in downtown Oakland, right in the middle of Occupy, like back in the Occupy movement, Occupy Oakland. I was 2 blocks from there. You could hear gunshots and so forth. But my days off were Tuesday, Wednesday, and so I played baseball in college. I really wanted to be a professional baseball player. I was supposed to get drafted my senior year, but I tore my lat, and so all the teams didn't. I was already undersized, so they were not about to draft me. I was have to get healthy and sign. So I started training in a parking deck underground after work. I'd work from 10 to 7 every day, and then just underground, I'd throw baseballs into a net. And lo and behold, I made this team. It's like the super low level, like I said, the equivalent of high A. If you're familiar with the A, double A, triple A, it's high A.
Yeah.
And I did that for 2 years.
Nice. And then sale, and then you got
like
into
every washed up athlete.
like software sales.
Ended up in Oracle, like many washed up athletes. As I said, I think there was like 3 or 4 baseball guys on my floor, including one former major leaguer. And so it just sort of, I think the transition from baseball to sales just kind of makes sense. It's so many parallels.
Right. So many I mean, competition in general, like
individual performance, even though you're on a team, it's really more individual focused. Like this process, you lose a lot, like best baseball players,
right.
Get out 70% of the time. Like it was just like the mentality was very much the same.
Yeah. Close rates and like on base percentages or whatever. I don't know anything about baseball, but I've seen Moneyball. So
once you've seen Moneyball, so I mean, yeah, you're a GM. You're basically a GM. I think you're qualified to be a GM.
Another parallel, I guess, just like the pre-meeting, big meeting and like the mindset check you go into, and sort of like, I've heard you talk about this a little bit, in like getting prepped and just being really heads down and getting in the right mindset for like a big meeting or a big game or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think anytime you have a big meeting, it's no different than a big game or a big performance, whatever it is. And there has to be some sort of, the good ones prepare in some way, shape or form. And I think the best baseball players, you don't often know if they're having the best day or the worst day of their life. And the same thing with salespeople. You don't know if they're having the best or worst day of their life.
Right.
Most salespeople, they'll, if you're close with them, they'll tell you they're having the worst day of their life. But, as a prospect, you shouldn't know.
I think I was too emotional as a salesperson. Like I would, you're not supposed to take things personally. I wouldn't when it was like an outbound email or like a mean note or something, but like big calls and negotiating, and when it got late in the deal where you've put a ton of work into it and then it's all for nothing.
Right.
Like I definitely remember losing sleep and having really bad days after.
Oh, I was losing sleep. I mean, the depression was real. It was just more whether or not you showed people you were depressed. It's whether you showed them or just your therapist. It was
right.
That's just how it went. It's an emotional game, man. It was a tough game.
There's also different types of reps, at least in my experience. Like there's, we had at any given time on our team, probably an equal distribution of like the charismatic rep who was just going to like win the prospect over by being super likable.
Yep.
There was like the workhorse rep who would come like with Evernote's scrolling of pages, like prepping the history of fucking the company they're about to pitch to.
Yep.
There was like the mean, no bullshit rep. Like what type were you?
Yeah, the lone wolf type. I was definitely like I leaned a little more on the cheese dick side rep, like the guy with the cheesy jokes. But they were more they weren't as cheesy. They would have been more cheesy if they weren't self-deprecating.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of my silver bullet, or my like strategy, was be super self-aware that I was a salesperson and talk shit about myself. Because like I think that was the best way to break down walls, because everybody's on the defensive when they're talking to a salesperson.
The accusation audit is what they call it, I think. Like, hey, like I'm such an asshole for even asking this, but like,
yeah, totally fall on your sword. Like, look, you're talking to a salesperson here, so I'm going to ask the awkward questions because I'm that guy. Anyway, proceeds to ask awkward question.
It's so funny that if you call yourself a dick, you could get away with so much.
Totally.
Like, as long as you're self-aware. Yeah. That's amazing.
I think that was the biggest key. I mean, there's also, I worked around a bunch of people who are what I call the successful crybabies, who are like, oh, fuck, I'm never going to hit quota. God damn it. And they like haven't missed quota in like 3 years.
Yeah.
And then like 4 huge deals come in and they're like going to President's Club, but they're still whining. It's just like, shut the fuck up.
What would you say the hardest part about it was in sales in general?
I would guess you'd agree. I mean, just the mental toll. Like it is just such a mental strain. I mean, I would go home and be very depressed at times. It's hard to, if you're not at your number, to not go home and work. You know, it's easier said than done for people to be like, oh, as soon as 5 o'clock hits, I go home and I don't do shit. Well, in sales, if you're missing your number, like that's kind of what you are. You are your number. You're as good as your recent quarter, or you're as good as your current quarter, even. And so that was the most painful part, was just like, if you weren't there, it's the worst job in the world. If you were there, it was the best job in the world.
I think for me too, people would have these like truisms. They'd be like, oh, salespeople, like you need to listen as a salesperson. You have 2 ears and one mouth, use them proportionally, whatever. And it's like, okay, it's easy to say those things, but at the end of the day, like I'm calling this person up. They've never heard of me.
Yep.
And you can't cold call someone and then just listen, right? Like you need to be bringing value to the conversation sometimes. And you need to be like leading with something that they can take away. And yeah, it is like blanket feedback like that I was just like, okay, this isn't helping.
Yeah, I mean, like that's, you know, there's so many sales gurus and sales trainers and people who think they know, and like people may know what worked for them. There's just so many ways to do it. Like I had a buddy who was just very monotone and very robotic, and like, but it was weirdly trustworthy, because you're like, this guy like is just so focused on what's happening here. He's not wasting, you know, some people are turned off by the jokes, right? They're like, oh, look at this skeezy sales guy trying to win me over. Keeps saying my first name over and over again. But
Right.
like, I wasn't going to use his strategy. I wasn't going to talk like him. I needed to tell a story. I needed to have some like intonation and a different cadence and so forth. So it was kind of to each their own. Like there is no real way to do it. If there was a silver bullet, I'd be a billionaire, and I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be on an island.
Right. And I mean, even the good reps had good quarters and good years and bad years, and they sold for good companies and bad companies.
Oh, the situation is so important for people. Like good reps could crush someplace, go somewhere else and be like the worst rep because they got a shitty territory, or they have like selling a shittier product or whatever it is. So much luck involved. There is a lot.
That was probably the best advice, was like, the lows are going to be bad. Never beat yourself too much up. And that was good feedback. But also like when you're crushing it, understand that it's a combination of luck and where you are and the market and timing, and don't ride it. Don't go presenting to the team about, these are the top 3 things you should do to close a deal, and I'm the fucking man. Cause that's just going to make it, what comes up must come down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, next quarter, you're the worst person. Like you're getting put on PIP, and you're right after that presentation at SKO where you're telling everyone what they should be doing. I've seen it before, but that's the game. That's the crazy part about the game, is it's just like, it's super fleeting and it never ends. And I think that's why most people have a shelf life. Like eventually they want to get out, they want to go do something else, or they find a side hustle or a hobby, whatever it may be. And sales is kind of the means to an end. And I do think sales is, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is like sales is the most important skill you can learn. It can get you pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
So outside of a traditional like quota carrying role, it's a great skill.
I compare it to, like, I think content creation is kind of along, is you could draw some parallels with it just being like a really good skill that no matter where you end up, like if you start working in product or you found a company or whatever it is, like being able to sell and being able to create content are very important skills. Obviously bias here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. as former sales guys who made content.
Content creation is important.
No, I mean, it is. I think like that's the shift we're going towards. And you're seeing companies, including a goddamn venture capital like company like Redpoint, putting out content, through you, which is a very weird, like,
what the fuck are those guys?
And why? what do they not have? What else do they want? Like what? You have so much money. What else is there? You got to beat the game.
Amazing. Okay, so you at some point out from this, highs and lows of sales, were able to create a ton of amazing content. I know you started on Vine, and then basically out was CorporateBro, which became like this personality and Instagram account that you ended up creating, and a bunch of sketches. I know you were like pretty scrappy at the beginning with using different people's offices to create content and stuff like that. Like, what were the beginnings of CorporateBro like?
Yeah, I mean, it was born out of the pain, entirely out of the pain. I think it was like catharsis. It was like this. I was working at Oracle. This place is ridiculous. We're 24 years old, 20 to 40 years old. All these people in this building, it was just salespeople. It was a ridiculous place. How are we selling $1 million deals to Fortune 100 CEOs. We don't know what the fuck we're talking about. We don't know what our technology does. And, you know, then we're going to go to Coachella on the weekend and black out and do it all over again. And so I was like, someone's got to talk about this. Like, how is nobody talking about this like ridiculous world of software sales?
Well, people were talking about it, but they were talking about 4 ways to outbound and the best way to negotiate and, you know, never split the difference and all that shit.
Right. And I mean, I had no idea I was even getting into sales. I got a business development role, which no one told me would be just an outbound cold caller. So I kind of, you know, stumbled my way in there. But I would make videos in between calls, or when my manager would go to lunch or at lunch, or like, you know, 6-second videos were not terribly difficult to pull off. I'd be like, okay, this clip's going to be 1.2 seconds. This one's going to be 2.4, and this one's going to be another blah, blah. And I know what my shot list was coming into the day, which I could get done in 5 minutes, like truly 5 minutes. Or it's one shot for 6 seconds. So it wasn't like, you know, I think some people would like to imagine that I was just doing nothing but these videos. I would put out maybe one a week, or I'd get inspired in a day and make 3 or something. Or like, I never made it with any intent other than like, this is ridiculous, and my teammates think this is funny, and other people on the floor think it's funny, and they kind of just grew from there.
And what time we're talking?
2014.
Definitely pre-TikTok.
Way pre-TikTok.
Instagram
still didn't have video.
Influencer, like thirst traps and stuff. Like, it wasn't even
pictures. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like,
it was honestly pre-memes, frankly. It was like like memes being a thing. This was like probably the beginning of back when like there were only a few meme formats you would use. You'd use like the Bad Luck Brian, or the like what are Bachelor Frog, or like it was before people were creating their own meme content.
Yeah. Interesting.
It was like the standard design.
And you were able to grow just based on like organic word of mouth, other sales reps at other companies. And then I know you got picked up by a couple like traditional media, like press stuff.
Yeah, that was after the transition over. So Vine was basically sunsetting. It was like little kids. It was like music videos and then little kids. And basically it got to a point where all my friends were like, look, I only have Vine just so I can watch your videos, but like, I don't really go on Vine. And so the writing was somewhat on the wall, but I was like, I didn't want to lose my videos. So I just started putting them on Instagram. Instagram basically let you do 15-second videos. And as I was doing that, that's when I got picked up back when these publications mattered. Total Frat Move and Bro Bible, which were like the bar stools before Barstool really blew up and kind of owned the space. Like, people did actually read those. And so that's basically what took me from, I don't know, 3,000 people on Instagram to a little over 10. That was the real blow up. I think I was at 15-ish on Vine, but Vine was so cheeky and lightweight, it never felt like a viable anything. I just was like, oh, this is cool, whatever. There weren't ads. I wasn't getting ads. There was nothing about it that was any business orientation there. So that's when I kind of realized, and this was the turn basically to 2015. I think I remember it going up over Christmas, and I got lucky because I guess they went out of town. The publications did. So the article, like, the account you should follow today, sat on their website for 3 days or something, 3 full days before they refreshed it. So I got super lucky there. And that's when I decided, maybe I should put some creative rigor behind the process here.
Obviously, this has blown up the space of creators, people making video content online in the past 2 years, probably more so than the previous 10. You probably have a unique perspective on the longevity of a creator. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I know we've talked about this a little bit, but like,
yeah,
how do you keep going? It's been 5, 6, almost 7 years for you now. Like, what is it about your process or about your mentality that allows you to keep posting a video a week? Because I mean, I've experienced the drain firsthand, and there's definitely times where I'm like, fuck, I don't know if I can keep doing this.
I mean, dude, it's hard. Like, I mean, as I sit here right now, I don't have a video to post this week. I haven't posted in a week. I don't have a story up on my IG. Like,
go play some golf. I always enjoy those.
Yeah, I know. Just go play some golf, take some drugs, and play some golf, and let people know how I'm feeling. No, I don't know, man. It gets harder and harder. I think a lot of people will try to burn themselves. The problem is that these platforms simply promote volume. They don't give a shit how good it is. And that's always been a problem for me. Like, I've always been the once a week. I was like, I can do once a week. And even that, like, at times has felt hard, but I could go in an office, I could maybe get 3 videos and be like, okay, I'm good for 3 weeks. Let me just write and chill. And I can't personally do that daily. I don't have that type of motor. And I think part of it is definitely that I didn't grow up in the TikTok space where they don't give a shit about quality. Like, I want my videos to have a certain level of consistency and quality every week.
Right.
Now, that's for better or worse. I think in terms of longevity question, it's just like, how long can you, it's just like sales, take the rat race? There is no real end game. People ask me what the end game with like social is. My end game is the I dream of the day I don't have to post on socials anymore and I can go live my life and do bigger, different projects. That's what I want to do. So social again is a means to an end in the way that sales was. Your quarter, you hit your number that quarter. Guess what? You got to do it again. Oh, you had a good post. Well, guess what? You got to do another post next week too. Like there is no end game. So 8 years, I think I've missed I could probably count on two hands the amount of weeks I've missed. And I've done a few reposts from time to time just to resurface old content that people who weren't following 8 years ago, I want them to see. But for the most part, like I think the longevity is more of how long can you handle trying to put stuff out in the same, like of a same type, like candidly, I don't want to be CorporateBro forever. I want to make other content. I want to do different things. I want to work on bigger projects and they don't have to be my project either. So it's kind of to me, I view it as a portfolio and kind of a proof point of a bigger goal for what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think? How long do you think creators last?
It's really tough. Like you said, the algorithm is really harsh on your just like mental state. And I constantly find myself thinking like it's easy to just like do away with the history that you've created and the bangers and the amazing community that you've built and only reduce yourself to like, what was my last post? I didn't do well, which is so crazy to think about because it's like for 5 years, you've been making people laugh. You've probably been shared in presentations for sales teams and people are rallying around their stuff. But in your head, you're like, oh, but this last video that I posted wasn't so great.
Oh, I mean, like
it's a mind fuck.
No, it's a total mind fuck. And like it was the same thing with baseball. Like I was a starting pitcher. I pitch every 5 days. My week was dictated on how my previous start went. I either had a hell of a game. I was the king of the world, feeling good, or I didn't. And I was like, oh my God, I suck. I'm the worst. I'm done. I got nothing left in the tank. And I'm, I mean, that's probably a little bit more extreme, but I still feel the same way with my posts. I'm like, yeah, that was the last straw probably for a lot of people. They're probably saying, oh, Corp fell off or like he doesn't have it anymore. He's lost touch or whatever it is. And yeah, like despite all the years of shit that I've done and the ones where people are like, man, this one means a lot to me. This one really hit home, blah, blah, blah. It gets to a point where success becomes, and I hate it, it becomes business as usual, status quo. And anything less than that is like a day ruiner, a week ruiner. And I'm just shit. Like, and I say status quo, I mean, like, I don't feel good about it. I feel more relief if I have a successful post than like, yeah, like, rah, rah, I feel good.
You're not totally celebrating it. Yeah.
No, not at all. I'm like thankful I'm surviving at that point.
Well, I think with the emergence of more, I mean, I have to imagine sometimes it feels lonely in this day and age and there's so many creators out there. I have to imagine before it was even more the case, like in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
So I think with hopefully the emergence of more people, like there will be more, at least community for creators to like get together and just like share stuff with each other.
Well, it's nice. I mean, I agree.
I don't know, for lack of a better solution, that would be good.
It's been definitely lonely. It's still, I mean, dude, you're in New York. Like I have Natalie here, but that's like the closest thing, but she's busy doing her thing. And it's, I think like the one thing I do miss about sales and sports is just like the other people on the team.
Yeah.
Like this is a pretty lonely game, regardless of like, and it's hard to not compare yourself to other people and look around and be like, how does that work there? I've done that before. It doesn't work. You have to like look at what are the trends and what are other people doing.
You have to.
I have gotten to a point where I really don't consume a lot of social media. I literally post and I close it. I like barely respond to comments, even like DMs and so forth. And
yeah.
I know that hurts me from like the growth standpoint, from the algorithmic standpoint, but from the mental health standpoint, like I have to do it. It's when you go all in on this shit that's like difficult.
I feel you 100%. So anyways, to hopefully as many more years as you want to be doing this, but
yeah,
I don't think you see a ton of creators create different revenue streams the way that you have.
True.
And I guess it's a good transition into like Corp Capital, which is this fund that you created for salespeople to be able to invest in the private markets, which is, I think, something that people are talking about way more these days, like just democratizing being able to invest in private companies as opposed to just like stocks and stuff like that. Did your Stanford experience, like, I guess, give you the network or the skills to be able to do that, do you think?
It's fascinating because I really do love the business side of things. I think that's like my curiosity around business and how businesses are run and how companies are scaled, like kind of led to this point of, well, how do I get involved? Now, granted, I have a mom who's worked in financial services and investing for 40 years. Like she's worked at Schwab for 40 years. So like I was exposed early to like financial education and kind of what this like, or what this like world is about. And so I was like, well, all these salespeople, they have high risk tolerance. They make a bunch of money. They get screwed on cap tables when they join these new companies. How do we kind of bridge the information gap here? How do we show them that they don't have to work at a company to have equity in that company?
Yeah.
And so I want, that was kind of the reason for Corp Cap. Like I could do angel investing. I've done it for a while, but I wanted to see, hey, well, what if we pull everyone together? What can we do there? And if we build a community around it, how can we be more value add than just a check? How can we help them hire their first salesperson or help them, communicate their brand, teach them how to use TikTok, these types of things.
Totally.
So, it's still relatively new, but that's the pie in the sky goal is to be like a very, God, I hate that I'm saying this, value add, like contributor to the companies that we invest in.
Right. And your LPs are basically a bunch of reps that are contributing like modest amounts by comparison to what LPs usually do.
Yeah, I mean the minimum on a given deal is $1,000. Yeah, exactly. Like this is the little league version of, ultra little league version of Redpoint. If Redpoint is the big leagues, we're low A. We're just like down here kind of scraping around. But I think it is interesting to see all these folks who are like actually kind of rallying behind it. Like they're pretty fired up about it. Like I think as you've seen the growth of Wall Street bets, or you've seen crypto kind of blow up, like people are really curious about. And now, granted, those are a little more high risk bets, but like similarly, they're like, well, how else do I do that? How else can I make money that is not just my paycheck every day? So it's been pretty cool to see.
That's awesome, dude. Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, just it's really cool to see creators branching out, like Mr. Beast being like the biggest example of someone taking their community and I mean, he's just a savage. I've been listening to a ton of his
absolute beast.
Fucking the guy is what he like didn't listen to music or watch movies for the first like 18 years of his life. He was like, why would I watch a movie? I can watch 10 YouTube videos, so why would I watch a movie? And he would just study retention. Like he can tell you how, if you sneeze on camera, how does that affect retention? Like he's really something. But
told his mom he was going to college, but he wasn't.
Yeah, like the guy is just but what he's been able to do in an awesome way is like turn that community and like use the distribution. That's like the hot thing that people are talking about with creators. And I think you've done that with a couple of the revenue streams that you've opened, and Corp Capital being, I don't know, I don't think I've seen anything like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think the world's headed that direction. I say this to a lot of people. Hollywood wants to be Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley wants to be Hollywood. And so like you're seeing Ashton Kutcher was like one of the early kind of big name Hollywood investors, and you still hear his name thrown around. The Chainsmokers now have like a fund they're doing stuff with, like Will Smith. They all want to do this stuff.
All the athletes are investing in stuff. Yeah.
Right. You're seeing this kind of diversification. So it's interesting. It's just like how do we get the commoners like you and me to be able to do this shit? So content creation.
Good stuff, man. All right. Well, let's transition into I want to hear more about the pilots. So you have some experience writing pilots. I know you've been working on one. You did something in LA that you posted all over your socials this summer. And then there was something last Thanksgiving too. So like, what's been your experience? And then we'll jump into about a bunch of questions about like how you actually get this shit done.
Yeah. So I've written 3 different pilots at this point. One of them I shot. That's the one you're thinking of. That would have been Thanksgiving, probably 2 years. That was in business school. One of the commitments I made to myself was like, if I'm going to Stanford, not Second City, I'm going to shoot something, do a bigger project. And that was a super, super low budget. I spent $40,000 on it, which is ultra low budget in Hollywood. But for me, I was like, this is everything I got.
Yeah.
So like, we're going to try it out. And it was a project. It probably took me a year and a half to write the pilots over, like, it wasn't my full-time job. Iterations, had friends help, throw in their 2 cents, family read it, whatever, so on and so forth. But you realize that just to shoot a simple like pilot takes a lot of people, and fast forward this summer,
cameras and production,
producers, directors, sound people, like there's multiple people dealing with cameras, people who are dealing with props and art, and like it's a whole thing. So it really is a project, masterclass in project management, or a baptism by fire of project management. And so, I mean, the writing piece is just like a small fraction of what it takes to get a pilot off the ground. Now, I describe the pilot as just, I'll use masterclass again, but a masterclass in mediocrity, which it was. And like, it was one of those things that you could only learn those lessons with doing it. Like, how does my writing translate to actors, other people saying it? Are they going to say it the way I want to say it? Oh, maybe not. Oh, maybe this joke that pops off the page when you read it is a little too over the top when someone acts it.
Yeah.
I read 50 different pilots from like The Office to Silicon Valley. Now, granted, this stuff was like born out of CorporateBro, so it was all the workaholics. I tried to read every pilot I could find. New Girl, and it was really interesting because when I read for the Office, for example, I laughed out loud one time in the whole pilot, and we're talking about like one of the greatest shows in history, and that was a huge learning to me because what you're like, okay, a lot of the funny needs to be nuanced. It needs to be your characters. It needs to be who's playing those characters and how they would deliver it.
The expressions.
It's
like I bet if I read one of your transcripts of those cold calls, I mean, it's not that funny, but you like sitting on the Barcalounger with like the tissues and like the red nose, like that's hilarious.
Right. And so there's just tons of pieces that just don't show up in writing. Like, you're not supposed to tell an actor how to act. You can give them lines and then, they create this character.
Yeah.
So that pilot we shot in a weekend, basically literally, I guess, was it 3 days? I think it was 2 days, but 16 hours a day to shoot it. It was, we were ripping like 15 pages a day. And I think Hollywood normally does like 6 to 8 a day.
Oh, wow.
And I had the flu. I was so ill the whole time. It was really fun. It was really cool. But goddamn, there were so many things that I wish I could have. If knowing what I knew now and what I shot this summer against that, it's gonna be just night and day.
So you give this agency or whatever, I guess you use like a production agency, and you say, hey, I've got $40,000. Then they say, okay, great, that buys you 2 to 3 days, and then you get a bunch of actor friends of yours to be part of it, and then you go out there and you just grind it out for a couple days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so embarrassed by this. I found my production company through like, I want to say Fiverr. I was like, I did not do this right. It was a company that usually did more like corporate interview type videos. Like, you want your VP of sales like talking to the camera, like talking about the product and how great it is to work at a company.
Right.
Like, they were not really a creative. Like, I didn't have music in it. I didn't really do any color editing. I didn't do much sound editing. Like, there's all these pieces that I just didn't even know. Like, if you go listen to any or watch any sitcom or any show, there's so much music and sound in the background that you like kind of changes the mood, helps jokes be delivered better. If you really focus, you're like, oh, you usually don't realize it's happening until there's nothing there, until there's weird silence and like,
and then it feels weird.
So that was like one of the things so I got them through Fire or whatever. We had our meetings, and then they basically say, okay, here's what you need to sacrifice if this is your budget. And you start pulling things back, and you're like, okay, well, we can't get an actor here. Oh, well, we'll just pull a member of the crew here to be this person. We had porn stars as our actors in background, folks. Dead serious. Yeah.
Are they good ones?
So Tommy Pistol for the last few years has been absolutely cleaning up at the porn Oscars, whatever you want to call it. I can't remember the name of what I don't know. There's like, they have an official whatever award thing, and he's been dominant, just dominant. So yeah, he was probably their biggest name we cast.
That's amazing. Okay, so you've got this production agency. You've sort of scrambled a bunch of actors, friends, whoever will
fly to LA with me and live in this Airbnb for free.
You're not paying the actors.
No. So I paid a few of the actors, but the majority of them I did not pay.
Right. That's not included in $40,000.
Like the most I paid for an actor was $500 a day.
And then you've negotiated, I guess, something with the agency to say like, they're going to hand you a deliverable. I guess, is a pilot one episode or is it multiple episodes?
It's just one episode.
It's just one
episode. In this case, it was one episode. Yeah.
Okay. And then they say, oh, you have 1 revision or 5 revisions or something like that. And you can maybe give some commentary, but ultimately that's their deliverable to you, is like 1 episode of this show. And you're hoping that you get something that you can ideally, I guess, pitch to networks or publish yourself or something like that?
Well, it depends. So each piece is like its own negotiation. So I say 40. It was probably 45 because I paid 5 to the editor at the end. And the editor's like, you get 3 revisions, or I will work on this within this week. And like outside of that, you can pay me hourly to go back and do stuff if you really want to. But otherwise, this is like what it is.
Right.
And so each piece is an attach. So like to build a show, it's all what they call attachments. Now, a good production company has some people, like they have people they work with. And I'll explain how it's like very different when I did it this time. But like, you know, they've got their 2 camera guys that they always hit up.
Gotcha.
Those guys have their like, you know, assistants, their, you know, grips, and then the PAs come in, like direct. Everyone kind of has their people. And slowly, you piece by piece, they bring them in.
Kind of reminds me of like like construction, and like you make a building and they like hire subcontractors for like the plumbing and the electric and stuff like that.
That's exactly it. That's it. That's building a show. And so I think one of the interesting things that a lot of people assume is, especially with cast, is like everyone gets super close and gets to know each other. But a lot of times casts come and go. They'll come in. I got to act in a show this last summer that had like Danny Trejo in it. Danny Trejo is in 6 of the 6 episodes. Danny Trejo came in for half of a day, shot all of his parts and left. We never saw him again.
Right.
Like I didn't get close to Danny Trejo.
Plus your boy Tommy's got better stuff to do.
Yeah, Tommy's got a lot of things to capital D-O. He's got lots of things to do. But I mean, Tommy was there a little bit more than Danny Trejo in this example, but it is a lot of moving parts of people coming and going, performing their piece and leaving.
Did you consider pitching, because you could have just pitched the PDF, right, to networks or something like that? Is that
I could have.
I guess, what are the trade-offs there, and how do people think about that stuff?
Well, the trade-offs are like, who the hell am I?
45 grand.
Yeah, well, yeah, 45 grand, and then also who the hell am I? Like, you know, if Brad Pitt has a script idea, 1,000 people are going to read it and give it a chance and be like, oh, he'll have the right attachments here. He'll get the right people involved. You know, if I was going to sell that pilot, I would have needed to be like, okay, I've got Adam Devine committed to play the lead if we're going to do this. And I've got so-and-so director who's like wants to direct this. And then we present it like that. Again, the attachments, it's the resume, right? It's like, who are the heavy hitters you can get as just an average dude, you know, like an average MBA guy who does like a little social media following. Hollywood didn't give a shit, and they were never going to give a shit. And like, I do have an agent and I do have a manager, but like, even still, you know, the actual feedback I got, for better or worse, I mean, this is a whole other segue, is like, we don't want another workplace show about a white guy in a white world. Fine. Like, I get that. Like in this, you know, the way content is being purchased now, like you need a lot of different elements that are unique and different. The white shows have had their run.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're Brad Pitt, like, and unless you, like I said, you have something, a resume there. So basically what they said was, hey, you know, we think you're funny. We think we got some talent, but go make this. Their response was literally, we can't buy this. Go make it. Let's see what happens. And made it, you know, learned a lot from it, knew like, and you probably, I'm curious actually your thoughts on this too, is my taste has always been superior to my execution, for better or worse. So it's like, I knew what I made was not going to win anything. Like, I was like, okay, I'm proud that I got this done, but I also know if I'm watching this candidly, like, I ain't picking this up.
It's one of the hardest things to get over, and probably why most people end up just not starting creating to start with, is that your taste is way better than your skills at the beginning because you've never done it before.
Totally.
But if you do have good taste, you're critical on yourself, and then you end up
right. You'll keep elevating.
It's a bad cycle, but you kind of have to power through at the beginning.
Right. And that gap will get more and more narrow, more and more narrow. And like, you always want your taste to be slightly above your execution, right? Otherwise, like, if your taste is shitty and you're always hitting that bar, then your stuff never gets better.
Probably not good content. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So, I mean, so to like take that all the way back is just like, there was no way it was getting picked up. I'm glad I did. It was building the resume. It's more of like, okay, is this person serious? You know, a lot of them are like, look, the fact that you made this puts you above, you know, 98% of people. You found a way to finance it. You found a way to get it done. And like, yeah, it wasn't exactly what you may have wanted. It wasn't Hollywood level stuff, but like, that's the piece that they're looking for. They want people who are, if you're going to write a pilot, or create content, you have to be committed. There is just no half-ass.
I'm sure you brought whatever you learned to the next time you did this around. So you did another show in LA. Is it episode 2 of the same show, or is it completely different concept to start with?
Very fair question. It is I would say in life, the life thread, it is a continuation, but the show is different. I mean, it is from a factual show standpoint, it is different. It is some of the same characters. It is some of the same world, but for example, like it's a new company they're working at. Some of the characters are the same. It's shot completely different. The first one we shot was shot mockumentary style, which, as you guys know, in The Office, it's like there's confessionals and like
Sure.
the cameras are on shoulders, so you kind of feel them. You feel like it's your eyes moving around. Ours was shot with one camera, very stable, very stylized. A lot of honestly very artistic shots, which is weird to think about in a workplace comedy, but it will look vastly different.
You didn't use the Fiverr guys this time.
No, I did not use the Fiverr guys. This is like, fortunately, you start to do this, every time you meet more people, you get closer and closer to the best people. And so instead we used folks who graduated from a school called AFI, American Film Institute, which is a very prestigious film school in LA. And so I knew basically I hired our director and our producer separately. They had their people, they gave me people to interview. And like the process was just like, when you just work with someone or somewhere, like that's just so much more professional. You're just like, damn, this just is like how it's supposed to go. That's how it went this time. I was like, okay, we got real people doing real people who had worked on Avatar, who had worked on blockbuster films, who have like done real shit and like know how to be a professional in it. Whereas the other one was like, I don't know, that seemed pretty good. We actually fired our director day one on the first pilot.
Oh man.
So business school of us.
Yeah.
Because we got done day one and we all looked at each other, we were sitting in the Airbnb like, was that good? Like, was it good? Like, we got no feedback. We got no direction. We just like deliver the lines and we're just like, is this what it's supposed to be? And then we learned that a director is really supposed to tell you, hey, let's try it this way. They've got a vision for what's happening. Also, the director day one, I introduced myself to him. He had no idea what CorporateBro was. No idea. He had no idea the whole, like my whole social, like this is all out of the social thing that I had done. And I was like,
Did you consider directing it yourself, or were you just like, I don't know, have the skills to do this?
I considered it. Like, directing the sketches is one thing, but when you need somebody to like watch all the performances, there was just no way. Could I have conceptually done it? Sure, but I wanted someone who was better than me, which is 99%.
You're also in the thing, right?
Exactly. When you're acting, how do you know how well and it can be done, but it's done by like the greats, and I'm far from a great. So I was like, no, I need a pro here to handle this.
Last question. In terms of pitching, so, okay, you've got this thing now, this deliverable, which is a complete episode with or without the music, with all the elements that the editors were able to include. At least in the comedy space, there's a lot of talk about publishing things sort of independently. I don't know if you saw what happened with Andrew Schultz and the network that he pitched to, and he ended up buying it back and then published it on his own, made a ton of money.
Yep.
Now, granted, he's got a massive following and mass appeal to not just like salespeople and stuff like that. But like, do you think about that versus pitching to networks or publishing to YouTube or setting up a little site with a payment where I can buy CorporateBro's episode for $20? Like, how do you actually think about distributing this stuff?
Yeah, that's a totally fair question. And I think like the world is shifted because of the internet, right? I could put it on YouTube. I could gate it somehow. I could do whatever I want. And like, I think that's probably the reality of what will happen. Now, I won't gate it. I will never charge for this content. Like, I made this thing. I want to make it as accessible as possible. I want everyone to watch it.
Yeah.
And then I go from there. Like, I didn't make this to try and make money off it. I made this because I want people to watch it. And so I will go pitch. I've already had like a couple. I won't pitch to networks because it's not. So we shot 8 episodes. This new one is 8 episodes. The episodes range from 8 to 16 minutes. They're like 8 to 12, and the finale is 16.
Nice.
And so it is definitely short form. It doesn't fit on a typical 22-minute, sitcom style network show. Just will never work there. My hope is more around either streaming service picks it up and says, hey, we want to finance season 2 and get you some writers. And, we've seen what this could be now if only you had budget. So the budget for this series was $500K.
Oh, wow.
Which was partially me. All the speaking and brand stuff I've done was like to get this project. I was going to self-finance this whole thing, but I was able to get a couple of corporate sponsors to take about 80%, a little less, probably about 75% of the load off of me. And everything else I want, like, we've got an animator who's really expensive, but really fucking good. And I'm like, you know what? An extra $5,000 here. Like, I want this to be as good as it can. I'm going to pay for it. So like, you just get what you pay for in Hollywood. Like, you buy yourself time, and then you're buying yourself technical expertise. And so I will go through the pitching to networks or not networks, to streaming services and so forth. But the reality is there's the most likely world where I put it on YouTube. I try to get enough interest in it, drum it up as big as I can. And if it gets, couple million views, then the network or then a streaming service says, okay, here's your proof point. We get it. Let's see what we can do in a bigger scale of this. And then season 2 gets picked up and we go try to write that and produce that.
The show's called Unsubscribe.
The show is called SAD, Sales Are Dope. SAD, born out of sadness and so forth.
Oh, amazing.
And yeah, that'll be kind of it. And right now we just submitted to South by Southwest. Our real hope is that we premiere there. Just the perfect intersection of tech and Hollywood, in my opinion.
Totally.
Which wouldn't be till March of next year. But I just spent yesterday watching not rough cuts, we're in our second cut, but just feedback, like, hey, let's cut this. Hey, let's add this back in. It's just every little detail marked down to the second.
It feels way better than the first time around.
It is objectively way better than the first time around.
Yeah, I could tell your energy around the second one is much.
Well, when I first watched it, I was it's hard because you were saying, I couldn't direct, so I didn't get to see the footage really. I got to see it after the day was over, but then to see it all pieced together, to see, we use a narrator, we use a lot of freeze frames, we use a lot of slow-mo, we use a lot of text on screen to explain certain sales concepts, and to see it now kind of getting tight and pulled together, I'm yeah, there's something here. I mean, is it exactly what I wanted and what I dreamed it would be? Not quite, but there's parts of it that are better than I ever thought it would be. And there's parts of it where I'm fucker. If it wasn't day one, the other pieces with comedy, you want to be cohesive with everyone. You start to develop inside jokes, right? And those don't play. If you shoot the last episode of the season, which we did, we shot the last scene of the season first.
Interesting.
Right? Which is weird. When you're shooting out of order, we actually shoot location based. We did all the conference room shots in the first 3 days. We did an outdoor day. We did a sales floor 4 days, And so it's weird to shoot the finale and the last scene of the show first when you don't quite have the chemistry with your fellow actors.
Yeah. I mean, I go back and listen to the early seasons of any of my favorite sitcoms and it's so cringe early on.
So that's the other piece.
Yeah.
It's so much worse. It's so hard for a comedy to be great in season 1. And, I hope we're at least okay. That's all. At least it's short enough that no one will feel like they wasted their time.
I think you're being hard on yourself. I think it's going to be awesome. I am super excited to check it out and wish you the best pitching to South by Southwest, wherever else it ends up. I'll definitely be on the lookout for it. Corp, it's been amazing, man. It's been awesome following you over the last couple of years. My friends send me your stuff all the time. It's been awesome to collab with you on some videos.
Yeah,
Let's keep doing those.
We had a banger, dude. We had a real banger. A real grade A banger.
We had a banger.
We did. So we got to do some more of those.
Many more. I have no shortage of notes about my life as a salesperson, all the ridiculous things that happen. So I'll send them your way and let's keep going with them.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the show. And Red Point, I'm sorry. I know you do work hard. You work hard. You just don't work as hard as a salesperson. And I'll die on that hill. I'll die all over that hill. I'll die all over that hill.
I recuse myself from this part, but thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Later.